Hi, Algebra 1. We're going to talk about division properties of exponents. Hopefully you'll remember and may have done some of this because dividing monomials is like simplifying fractions. But you've got to know the rules. So our quotient of powers says that when I have a to the m power over a to the n power, that's when I subtract m minus n. Okay? So here, I'm going to look at it in parts. I'm going to look at this part, and then I'm going to look at this part. Okay? So when I say 3 minus 1, that's going to give me g squared. 5 minus 2 is 3, h to the third, and we're good to go. Make sure you try the guided practice. Okay, power of a quotient. That's again where I'm going to distribute. I'm going to distribute this power to all parts that are inside. That gives me a to the m power over b to the m power. Sometimes when you have a fraction, you might look to see, can you simplify it first? Because smaller numbers are easier to do. Okay, so in example 2, we've got 3p cubed over 7 all raised to the second power, so that second power gets distributed to everything. 3 squared is 9. P to the third raised to the second is p, remember, multiplies. 3 times 2 is 6. 7 squared is 49. Now, because 3 and 7 are relatively prime, so are 9 and 49. Okay? So hopefully you remember that. Zero exponent property. X to the 0 power, any number to the 0 power equals 1. And hopefully you can think about that a couple of different ways. Hopefully you look at this and you say, hey, wait a minute, that's a fraction. And the top is the same as the bottom. It has to equal 1. Make sense? Okay? You could use your quotient of powers property and say, hey, 3 to the 5 minus 5 equals 3 to the 0, and any number to the 0 power equals 1. You could write out the factors and cancel them. Okay? My kids love it when I give them these problems because they look really hard. Okay? Because you've got n's on the top and the bottom, q's on the top and the bottom, r's on top and the bottom. So you could do a lot of simplifying, but you don't have to because it's all raised to the 0 power. So you know it equals 1. Easy breezy. Okay, now this is where you're going to see it more likely. And all this really means is, hey, I don't have any y's. So I just subtract my x's. 5 minus 3, this is equal to x squared. There are no y's because it's like a 1. Okay? All right, negative exponent property. If I have c to the second power over c to the fifth power, you might look at your quotient of powers property and say, hey, well, that's c to the 2 minus 5, and that equals c to the negative third power. And if you remember from last year, if you had a negative power, it's not done because that negative power means you've got to do a reciprocal. So this is 1 over c to the third power. So that negative power just moves it underneath your fraction bar. It's kind of saying, hey, gotta have a fraction. Okay? So when I look at example 4, I've got a negative exponent here. That means all of this is going to move to the bottom. This has a negative power. That means it's going to do the reciprocal and it's going to move up to the top. Okay? So that means my n to the fifth moves to the bottom, and the negative is what moves it. R to the negative second means it's going to come up to the top as a positive. P to the fourth. Does it matter what order you put your variables in? Not really. Okay? Does that make sense? All right, so let's look at the parts. Got a lot of parts on this one. When I've got numbers, I just simplify the fraction. 5 goes into both 5 and 20. Whether you write a 1 on top or not, it doesn't matter. You can put the negative with the 4, you can put it with the 1, you can put it in front. Doesn't really matter. Negative 3 says, hey, I need 3 more on the bottom. Okay? So I'm going to have r to the 5th on the bottom. Now, some people look at this and say, oh, 4 minus 7 is negative 3. I look at it and say, hey, there's more t's on the bottom. How many more? 3. So t to the 3rd is on the bottom. Okay? These 4 cancel out 4 of these and leaves 3 in the bottom. Okay? This negative says, hey, it's got to go up. So you've got u to the 5th on the top. Okay? Let's try another one. 2/10, 1/5. I look at my a's. That says I need 3 more a's on the top. So I'm going to have a to the 5th on the top. B's. Going to have 1 more b on the top. Ooh. -5 and -4. In my head, I could think c to the 4th over c to the 5th. There's more on the bottom. Okay? Or I could say -5 minus -4 is -1. Either way, I'm still going to have only 1 c on the bottom. Okay? I added an extra one because what do you do if you have a quotient of a power and that power is negative? I always like to say, hey, what does negative mean? Reciprocal. And then distribute. Okay? Or you can distribute and then move them, but either way, it's just as easy. That gives me c to the 12th over b to the 8th because power to a power you multiply. Okay? Hope that helps. Bye.